How close did the South China Sea come to war in 2025? In just 1 month, Chinese warships collided, jets nearly crashed midair, and US allies came under direct assault. Each move risked triggering a conflict the world isn't ready for. This is China's dangerous play against the US and its allies, explained. The first major flashpoint came on August 11, 2025, when China's own aggression turned against itself. A China Coast Guard cutter was chasing down a small Philippine patrol vessel in disputed waters. These confrontations have become routine, with Beijing using its Coast Guard and maritime militia to pressure Philippine ships away from reefs and shoals. But this time, things didn't go as planned. In the middle of the chase, the cutter lost control and collided with a nearby Chinese destroyer, one of the Navy's frontline warships. The impact crippled the Coast Guard vessel and left it stranded. For China, it was deeply embarrassing. The world had just watched its gray zone tactics spiral into an accident that undermined the very image of discipline and strength Beijing tries to project. The Philippines immediately offered to help, a gesture that could have cooled tensions. Instead, China refused the assistance outright. Accepting aid from Manila would have been an admission of weakness, and Beijing chose pride over pragmatism. That decision only amplified the fallout. Almost immediately, the United States sent 2 warships into the area. Washington didn't just want to monitor the situation. It wanted to make a point. By sailing in so quickly, the US Navy signaled that any threat to its allies, even one caused by China's own missteps, would be met with an unmistakable show of force. For Manila, it was reassurance that it wasn't standing alone. For Beijing, it was humiliation. Its attempt to intimidate a neighbor had ended with its own vessels colliding, all while American destroyers loomed nearby. Analysts later warned this was a textbook example of how crowded and unstable the South China Sea has become. One miscalculation, even from the side trying to show strength, can spiral into a chain reaction that no one is prepared to control. Just 2 days after the cutter-destroyer collision, the United States made its next move. On August 13, 2025, the U.S. Navy carried out its first freedom of navigation operation at Scarborough Shoal in more than 6 years. Scarborough is a small triangle of reefs and rocks, but it holds massive symbolic weight. Claimed by the Philippines but occupied by China, it has become one of the most contested points in the South China Sea. By sailing U.S. destroyers directly through the area, Washington was making a statement. These waters are international, not Chinese territory. The operation was deliberately timed. It followed China's embarrassing collision and served as a reminder that the US was still the dominant power when it came to enforcing the rules of the sea. Beijing's reaction was swift. Chinese state media blasted the patrol as a provocation, and the Ministry of Defense accused Washington of destabilizing the region. But US officials pushed back, saying the mission was nothing more than a routine enforcement of international law. The underlying message was clear. If China continued to harass its neighbors, the US would not stay on the sidelines. For the Philippines, this was a turning point. Since Scarborough Shoal lies just 120 nautical miles off its coast, Manila saw the operation as a direct show of support. For China, it was a warning shot. Every time it tried to tighten its grip on the sea, the US had the ability to roll in and challenge those claims publicly. Analysts noted that freedom of navigation patrols are rarely headline news. But this one was different. Coming just days after the cutter collision, it felt less like a legal exercise and more like Washington deliberately rubbing salt in Beijing's wounds and signaling that the era of restraint was over. Barely a week after the Scarborough Shoal patrol, tensions shifted from the sea to the skies. A Philippine surveillance plane was flying a routine mission when a Chinese fighter jet suddenly closed in. The distance between them, just 61 meters. Close enough that a single miscalculation could have spelled disaster. In aviation terms, that's dangerously reckless. Military pilots are trained to keep hundreds of meters of separation, especially in contested airspace. At 61 meters, one wrong adjustment of the throttle or a moment of turbulence could have sent both aircraft tumbling out of the sky. The Philippines reacted immediately, filing a formal protest and accusing China of reckless and unsafe flying. Manila stressed that its plane was in its own airspace and posed no threat. China, on the other hand, claimed it was monitoring a suspicious flight near what it calls its territory. The problem, of course, is that Beijing defines its territory according to the disputed 9-dash line, an area the International Court has already ruled illegal. For outside observers, This wasn't just another close call. It showed how China was willing to push the limits of international norms, even at the risk of a mid-air collision. Analysts warned that such incidents were part of a deliberate strategy. Create constant pressure, normalize dangerous behavior, and force smaller nations to back down. But this time, Manila didn't back down. Instead, it went public, calling out Beijing and rallying support from allies. The United States echoed the protest, condemning China's actions as unsafe and destabilizing. The near miss was more than a headline. It was a vivid reminder of how quickly a single aggressive maneuver could ignite a chain of events that no one could control. By August 20th, the tension had shifted once again, this time to the shallow waters of Ayungin Shoal. For Manila, this is more than just another reef. It's the site of the BRP Sierra Madre, a rusting World War II-era ship that the Philippines deliberately grounded back in 1999. Today, it serves as a military outpost, manned by a small group of Marines who live in Spartan conditions to assert Philippine sovereignty. China has long demanded that the Philippines remove the Sierra Madre. Instead, Manila has resupplied the vessel regularly, reinforcing its presence on the shoal. In August 2025, Beijing decided to escalate its pressure campaign. Philippine officials reported a sudden surge of Chinese ships around the area. Coast Guard cutters, militia vessels, and fast boats swarming the waters. Overhead, Chinese aircraft circled, while some vessels came within just 50 meters of the grounded ship. Then came the intimidation tactics. Chinese ships used water cannons, blasting near Philippine boats in drills designed to signal dominance. It was a clear attempt to rattle the small outpost and cut off Manila's ability to resupply its troops. For the Marines stationed on the Sierra Madre, it was a tense waiting game. Every close pass risked an accident. Every blocked supply run tested their endurance. And every maneuver carried the possibility of sparking an international crisis. Manila responded by issuing a formal diplomatic protest, calling China's actions illegal and destabilizing. Analysts warned that Ayungin was becoming a high-stakes game of chicken, with both sides refusing to yield. One defending its last outpost in the shoal, the other determined to squeeze it out. The stage was set for even greater escalation. By late August, the Philippines made it clear it wouldn't be intimidated into silence. Together with the United States, Australia, and Canada, it launched a massive set of joint drills under the banner of Exercise Alon 2025. For Manila, it was more than training. It was proof that it wasn't standing alone in the face of Beijing's pressure. The drills were extensive. Amphibious landings on Philippine beaches, simulated naval warfare, surveillance flights, and coordinated maneuvers at sea. U.S. Marines trained side by side with Philippine troops, while Canadian and Australian warships sailed alongside Philippine frigates. For the region, the message was obvious. Alliances weren't abstract treaties on paper. They were real, visible, and capable of working together in contested waters. China bristled at the exercise. Its Southern Theater Command issued statements condemning outside interference and warning that the drills undermined regional stability. In reality, Beijing saw something else. A coalition of countries directly challenging its sweeping claims and proving they were willing to operate together near Chinese-claimed waters. For the Philippines, the symbolism mattered just as much as the tactics. Every landing craft, every formation flight, and every patrol reinforced the idea that it wasn't facing China's pressure alone. For the United States and its allies, it was a chance to fine-tune coordination in exactly the kind of high-pressure environment they might face if a real clash erupted. Analysts noted that joint exercises like Alon 2025 were as much about deterrence as preparation. They sent a simple but powerful signal. The more Beijing tried to isolate Manila, the more Manila's allies would show up on its side, ready to prove it on the open sea. Exercise Alon was only the beginning. Soon after, the Philippines hosted another set of maneuvers under the Multilateral Maritime Cooperative Activity, MMCA. This time the drills unfolded inside the Philippines' own exclusive economic zone, off the coast of Zambales. Unlike many large-scale exercises held in international waters, the location carried symbolic weight. Manila was practicing defense in its own backyard. The Philippine Navy sent its modern frigate, the BRP Jose Rizal. Alongside it sailed Australia's HMAS Brisbane and Canada's HMCS Ville de Quebec. In the air, the U.S. Navy added surveillance with its P-8 Poseidon aircraft, while helicopters and anti-submarine teams rehearsed maneuvers. It was a tight, multinational formation that showed off interoperability. the ability of different forces to operate as one. But they weren't alone. Shadowing the flotilla were two Chinese warships, a Luoyang-class destroyer and a Jiangkai-class frigate. They trailed the drills at close range, a silent reminder that Beijing was watching and wasn't happy. Philippine officials dismissed the shadowing as intimidation, framing it as part of China's broader influence operations. The presence of Chinese ships didn't stop the exercises, but it added tension to every maneuver. To Manila and its partners, the MMCA showcased unity. To Beijing, it was a direct challenge. Foreign warships conducting joint drills inside waters China claims as its own under the 9-dash line. The contrast was stark. One side rehearsing cooperation under international law, the other sending silent shadows to make its displeasure known. Analysts pointed out that shadowing is a classic gray zone tactic. It skirts direct conflict but keeps pressure constant, making sure every allied move is answered by a Chinese presence. It's a slow grind strategy, and one designed to wear opponents down over time. While the Philippines and its allies were dealing with shadowing at sea, another alarm bell rang to the north. Taiwan raised urgent concerns about new Chinese oil and gas drilling near the Pratas Islands. On a map, the islands look like little more than specks in the South China Sea, but strategically they are a key link between Taiwan's southern defenses and the busy shipping lanes that carry global trade. Taiwanese officials accused China of violating the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, by conducting resource exploration inside areas claimed by Taipei. They also warned that the drilling threatened not just sovereignty, but regional stability, and even the environment. Oil rigs and exploratory platforms, once established, tend to linger, making them a de facto marker of control. For Taiwan, allowing those platforms to remain unchallenged would risk ceding ground in a sea already dominated by Beijing's artificial islands and military bases. The move caught international attention because it overlapped with the crises unfolding further south. Analysts noted that Beijing seemed to be stretching its pressure campaign on multiple fronts simultaneously, confronting the Philippines at Ayungin Shoal, shadowing allied navies near Zambales, and now drilling near Taiwanese territory. Each incident on its own was provocative. Together, they painted a picture of a coordinated strategy. For Taipei, the concern was immediate. The Pratas Islands are lightly defended, and any escalation there would test Taiwan's limited capacity to respond while already facing military pressure across the Taiwan Strait. By raising alarms publicly, Taiwan sought to rally international awareness and remind the world that the South China Sea's tensions were not limited to one or two hotspots, but stretched across the entire region. The stakes couldn't be higher. 1/3 of the world's trade flows through these waters. Energy shipments bound for Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan pass through the very lanes now crowded with warships. Any clash, even a brief one, could disrupt supply chains, spike global prices, and draw in multiple powers almost overnight. Analysts warn that the region is living on borrowed time.